Hello and welcome to Cooking with Quartz, and we're in the month of November, and so today for my demos I'm going to show you how you can take ingredients, the majority of which have been produced in Barbados, all local, and make them into something really special. The first thing I'm going to make is my famous coconut bread. So I've got some bowls, and everything that you see that I'm using here you can actually get from any of the Quartz stores. And the reason why I love shopping at Quartz is because I can find everything that I need for my kitchen, from the biggest of appliances to the smallest of gadgets. Yes, you can get this here too, the famous KitchenAid brand, and it's the brand that I love most. The first thing is that I use melted butter, and I chop my raisins as opposed to using whole raisins because I really don't like raisins. So you start off with a cup of milk, and this will give you one loaf this size. This is my loaf pan, already buttered, and I've got my oven set to 350 degrees. So you start off with a cup of milk, and you can use whichever milk you like. I like full milk. To that, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. Now, you can use white sugar, but I find that brown sugar, because it has the molasses, for breads like this and dense cakes, give you a much better flavor and great texture. So for that, I'm going to use, as I said, 3/4 of a cup. Now, if you grew up in a kitchen like my grandmother's kitchen, you know that measuring spoons really weren't around much then. So I eyeball a lot of things. So I've got, this is a 1/2 cup measure. So a 1/2 cup measure, and then a 1/2 of a 1/2 cup measure will give me 3/4 of a cup. To that, I add my melted butter. And I used mellow cream margarine from Roberts, made right here in Barbados. To that, I'm going to add a little bit of mixed essence. Morning. You meet everybody when you're cooking at Quartz. And then I'm going to add my coconut. Now, when I was growing up, this was my chore when it came to the coconut. I'd have to get the dried coconut, husk the dried coconut, crack the dried coconut, grate the dried coconut. Now I just buy frozen. But once again, made right here in Barbados. And now I'm going to add a combination of flours. I use whole wheat flour. And over a period of time, I know my combinations. So I'm going to try to give them to you in measurements. So I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. And then this is my new friend, cassava flour. Gluten-free, made right here in Barbados. And for most recipes, you can switch out regular flour for cassava flour. It gives you a great nutty flavor, and there are a number of producers that make it right here in Barbados. So I'm going to add a cup of cassava flour. I'm going to leave it right here because sometimes after your first mix around, it's not quite the texture that you want, and so you add a little bit more. I'm going to add my spices now. I've got some cinnamon, some cloves, and you can add the spices that you like. A lot of people don't like the flavor of nutmeg. I love it. And here's my nutmeg, just a tad, a little bit. If you were measuring, I'd say 1/2 teaspoon. And I stir that in. And before that gets too incorporated, I'm going to add some baking powder. And I would think for this, I usually add about two teaspoons. You can sift it, or you could not. It's totally up to you. And believe it or not, I add a little bit of salt. Not a lot, but just enough to really bring the flavors together, which is what salt does, and just lift it. Yeah. So I'm going to mix it up. And as I said, I'm looking at it to ensure that I get the texture that I want. This texture is a little cakey, right? So I'm going to add a bit more of everything. I'll add like a 1/2 cup more whole wheat. And about 1/3 of a cup of cassava. And don't worry, you don't have to add any more baking powder. It won't throw it off. And I know that I have the right consistency by the effort it takes in my wrist to get it off. See, it's a little different. And this is the texture that I want. And now I'm going to add my raisins that I've chopped because I do not like the taste of whole raisins in my mouth. That was where this came about. And I find that it aids in the distribution. It gives a much more even distribution throughout the bread. And you get in almost every bite, not in almost, in every bite, you get the taste of dried fruit, which is delicious. And you can begin to smell it. You can smell the nuttiness of the cassava flour, the essence, the spices, the coconut. And you know you're onto something good. And now this is the consistency that I want. It's not dry, it's not stiff, it's just turning over nicely, but it's not cake consistency either. And this is what I want. So I've got my pan, once again, available from Quartz. And I'm just gonna put it in. Now, when you're putting it in, sometimes you realize that, hey, you've left a little bit of flour on the bottom, and you just keep turning. Just want to incorporate everything. There you go. And I just put it into my pan. It doesn't have to come all the way up to the top because remember you've got a leavening agent in here. You've got some baking powder. So this will give it a chance to rise. And now here comes the part that a friend of mine who works at a bakery calls the heart of coconut. If you're a real coconut bread lover, then most coconut bread lovers will tell you, oh, it's not a real coconut bread if it doesn't have this in the middle. So I've got a mixture of grated coconut, the same coconut I used in the bread, mixed with some brown sugar, some cinnamon, and some clove. And everybody has their own way of putting it in. I just part my bread like that, create a little tunnel, spoon my coconut in, and I like a generous track of coconut. And then I just use my fingers and I close it back up. And you want to close it back up securely because if the coconut and sugar mixture is exposed, it can cause some burning when it's exposed to direct heat. And that's it. My oven at 350, and it goes. I put it on the middle rack, right in the middle of the middle rack. And the cooking times vary depending on the oven that you have. That normally takes about 45 minutes. But because you don't have 45 minutes and you can't wait, I've got some Natasha right here, already finished, that I would have made earlier. Thank you. And this is what it looks like. You can see the track of coconut in the middle, fruit distributed all throughout. It has a nice golden crust. Now, because of the cassava, it doesn't get that deep, dark brown that you probably remember from your childhood. But the flavor is worth the little reduced color. So it's not going to be dark brown. It's golden brown, and it has coconut all throughout. And just by smelling it, you really feel as though you're back in your grandmother's kitchen. Now, in terms of tasting, I don't want to be the judge. So who wants to try? Who wants to try the coconut bread? Come. Are you a coconut bread aficionado? You're an expert? Come, darling. But you like a good coconut bread? Yeah. Okay, well, let me get you some tissue. Here you go. Now, if it doesn't taste good, feel free to say it doesn't taste good. Come, sir. You like it? Okay. Old time way. So, you are a sweetbread expert? No. No. Okay, well, here you go. You tell me. Do you like sweetbread? Do you like coconut bread? Oh. What do you like to eat? You like pizza? Okay, I'm gonna make you some pizza. Is it good? All right. I didn't pay them. I don't know them. They're just your average satisfied shopper at court. So, cassava flour, uh, local, coconut, local, brown sugar, whole wheat flour, local, but an age-old recipe. You're switching out your white flour, reducing the amount of gluten, reducing the amount of sugar as well, depending more on your dried fruit, but coming up with an absolutely delicious result, good old-fashioned coconut bread, cooking with quartz.